I don't want to be way the fuck behind, slightly behind or significantly behind. And what I would have to decide is whether or not the overlay in the pot dictated a shove. And the fact is, I'm just not really sure. Um, if I fold this hand, I'm just not going to be happy about it. And if I, call with this hand, I'm just going to be really unhappy about it. And if I go all in with this hand, I'm also going to be pretty unhappy about it. So I feel like no matter what, this is an annoying spot. And maybe if I'm really just going to get dicked with this much, if I really just don't want to fuck around, maybe I should be folding pre-flop. It's something that I should consider. Honestly, I'm just not real sure. Just not real sure, about my play there. Bottom right-hand side, I have Queen Jack off in the big blind. These guys have relatively short stacks. Or Pat has a relatively short stack, only 62 big blinds. Martin is relatively deep. It's not like a terrible spot to call. It wouldn't be an awful overcall. I dominate some of their hands. They can have Jack 10, Jack 9 type hands, Queen 9 stuff. But at the same time, it's a 3.5x open. It's just going to be a tough spot no matter what. It's just not going to be a fun spot. So I elected to fold. Squeezing is also an option. It's one that I don't do very often, but it's definitely an option. Now, in the top left, I call. I had thought for some reason this was a cutoff raise from Oh My God, Clay Aiken, but I think it was actually an under the gun 1 raise, 5-handed. I call with ace jack off. It's definitely not like a loose call. I definitely don't want to 3-bet it. Calling or folding is relatively close. I just have to be dominating a lot of his opening range, and so I'm just okay with calling. I'm just not like particularly thrilled about it, but I'm okay with calling. So then when the flop comes Queen 7-6, I have the best hand some percentage of the time, and I have the third nut flush draw in this case. So I'm okay with check calling. The turn is a 7. I don't anticipate him barreling that very often. I assume that my hand looks like ace high with a club or queen X with a club, possibly exclusively those hands. Possibly also 7x with a club, possibly slow played flushes. I think for a second about making some sort of bet to make it look like I have queen jack to get him to fold 6x or like pocket 5s, because I think that since he knows since he assumes I'm going to check call with hands like ace x that have a club in them, I think it's a good spot for him to bet 6x and pocket 4s and pocket 5s on the flop, because it's really easy for him to bet fold them. And particularly if he has 6x, it's a particularly good spot. Particularly good spot particularly good spot for him to bet fold, because there's less check raising hands in my range because I have a couple less combos of pocket 6s. Here I flat ace queen offsuit to a button open from Martinez. Oh My God, Clay Aiken, I assumed would be squeeze happy. And also, relatively speaking, I have sort of a loose-ish image to call to the blinds, I would assume. So I'm kind of protecting my range. It's actually funny that at the same time on 2 tables with someone who I believe to be semi-squeeze happy, it's actually somewhat funny that I flat 2 big hands there. Top right, I don't assume that Nut Hunter is going to be light all that often. So I am going to fold ace jack off there. Don't think it's that difficult of a fold. In the bottom left now, I go ahead and now I was actually, it's funny because I was going to lead a decent amount of flops, but obviously that's a terrible flop to lead, so I was going to check call whoever bet, pretty much regardless of who bet, or irregardless of who bet. So then the turn comes down to 9, and Tom calls. The river is a 3 of diamonds, and it's not so much that I'm afraid I don't have the best hand here when I check. What I'm worried about is that he won't call with worse often enough to make it good. I just don't think that my range is enough air on that coordinated of a board for him to call with a non-diamond 1 pair hand like Queen Jack or something like that, or Queen 10, or or 8-9 or whatever. Now he can have those hands, don't get me wrong. He can definitely have those hands, but I just don't think that he calls with them nearly enough. If it would have been some sort of a brick, like pretty much just about any, I obviously am going to value bet again, but I just don't really think that he calls with worse enough for a bet to be okay. So in that case, it got a little, aces got a little sticky on what I would consider a pretty tough board. Bottom right hand side we have 9-10 of diamonds. I think leading this board has a lot of merit because Pat might he might raise call a lot of flush draws, specifically good flush draws. When I don't lead, I don't know that he's gonna continue with. I don't know that he's gonna bet the turn with one club type hand, but I'm pretty sure he'll call with them, specifically like King Jack type stuff and pot controlled pocket 9 or pot controlled 1-9 hands, pocket 7s, pocket 8s, all those hands that he can call with. So I just think that it's a good bet fundamentally speaking. On the turn, I don't think it's a good spot to double check raise. Although if a second flush draw would have come or something like that, it might have been a slightly better spot to double check raise. With 5s here, I would probably have to call Dur's reshove for 30 big blinds. I flop a 7. 7-5-2 rainbow. Going to be a lot of merits to check calling here, and also going to be a lot of merits to check raising here. The turn gets real sticky. I think there's, again, especially when the flush draw comes, some merit to trying to double check raise, but I think that the safer play is probably to lead. The reason that the safer play is to lead is because I know that there are hands that he will continue with in this spot, heart hands and 6-8. Well, that might not check the flop, but 5-8 and stuff like that, and 5-4, even like some ace-3 hands. Like my leading range can be relatively wide on the turn, so I think that it's sort of a safe play. Now he actually had turn raised me a couple times. But the thing is, even though he had turn raised me a few times, I don't have a lot of information on it. I'm just not sure what it is. Because he turn raised me a few times, perhaps it makes it more likely that he has some other shit in his range. Perhaps it makes it more likely that he has some shit like flush draws in his range. But it certainly doesn't give me anything concrete because I have not gotten to showdown with him. So because he can have all those hands that have equity, and because there's a flush draw that I could be bet 3-betting with King Queen of Hearts or something like that, I think this is some sort of bet 3-bet. Now, since he didn't bet the flop, I think that the hands like 7x that are like raising to charge me, I think that there's a few of those. There's only a few of those. So what I'm going to do is probably make some sort of a 3-bet that's sort of, or at least I hope I 3-bet here. I want to make something that sort of looks like I'm committing, but at the same time, there's some off-the-wall chance that I'm actually just pure 3-bet bluffing here. I basically just have to charge him. I just have to charge him because my hand is good, and I don't think his hand is as good as mine. There is some merit to going call for the times that I have like 6x or something or 7x, and I would just call the flop and check fold the turn or check fold the river sometimes or whatever. So there's some merit to going just call and then calling 100% of rivers, but I just have no idea what his bluff frequency is. But he's European, so there's a decent chance he's got a pretty good continue frequency when he has like a pair plus a straight draw or something like that. But again, I'm just not sure of what his range is. So again, I ran pretty good, I think, in the small segment of video that I decided to take. So again, that's like a relatively close spot, and one that I'm again not entirely sure about because it's going to it's going to happen from time to time. Is you're going to find spots that you're just not really that sure about. All right, now this video, as I can tell from the recording, is coming to a close. But what I'm going to do is talk about the biggest spot I won over the past few days, I think anyways, where in the top right corner, I cut the video off right before I got a chance to play it because my computer was lagging real bad while I had Camtasia running. So I'm going to talk about this hand for a second, then I'm going to wrap up the video. Dur raises the cutoff, it looks like. Ooh.